Welcome to the Gig School podcast, sponsored by Sorrento Strategic Music over here.
Thank
welcome,
you.
Kylie. Oh, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thanks for inviting me and asking me to support musicians, which is what I love doing.
Yes, you are a huge supporter of musicians and a specialist musician accountant for anyone listening or viewing who might not have heard of you before. So if you ever need an accountant as a musician, Kylie is your go-to person, and we're going to talk about things like musicians with their tax and their superannuation and numbers, things that people just might not know what the answers are. But we have a specialist in the room.
Yes, hopefully I'll have have the answers. I'm hoping that I've kind of helped you for the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, whatever that is.
Yes, exactly. No, it's been really amazing. So thank you so much. One of the questions that people do ask me a lot about is to do with GST actually. And so a lot of people ask things like, when do I start registering for GST, which is obviously 10% on top of the fee that you're charging. So if you're charging $1,000, if you charge GST, it's an extra 100 on top. So it'd be 1,100. So yeah, musicians, I guess, are wondering, when do they know they're gonna hit it? Like, should they register for it before they hit it? Like, what's your advice around that? Navigating that.
Yes, well, it is a bit of a tricky one, and basically the law is as soon as you reach $75,000 turnover or think you're going to reach $75,000 turnover in a financial year, that's the point that you should register. It's one of those things, I guess, if people are really busy and not really keeping an eye on their turnover, it can creep up on you. And it might not be until you put all your numbers together and come in for your tax return that you've realised you've gone over. It can be quite problematic. I haven't actually, in my 34 tax seasons, actually seen anyone penalised for going over and not collecting it. But basically, as soon as you realise if you register, I think that's going to, be doing the right thing. You don't know what you don't know, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So if someone, let's say there was a musician that their music just took off and they didn't realise, but they earned 100,000 and they went over the 75,000 obviously, what would happen to them then? Like, what would they be required to pay? And
So it seems quite scary, but as I say, I haven't actually seen the ATO come back and try and collect money that you haven't collected. So I feel like what people should realise is really all GST is you collecting the government's tax. It's not your money.
yeah.
And I guess one way they can easily check if you've gone over is just they've got a system that your gross turnover goes on your tax return.
Yeah.
So over 75,000, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of people really stress about that, not knowing what it is. But I guess if you know that 75,000, it's great to keep an eye on it. And really, you should be you should kind of know the difference between if you're earning 65 or 85,000 over a year. You should be a little bit closer to your numbers.
Yeah.
Obviously, the problem with it is once you do start collecting GST, it is extra cost because you have to do a GST return every quarter. So in terms of having an accountant, it is doubles your fees really for the year. All of a sudden, you've got to deal with us 4 times a year.
Yeah.
But it's just a cost of business, really.
Yeah, cost of success.
Yeah,
Because you're doing so well.
It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, a sign of success.
Yes. And unfortunately, especially yourself in the wedding industry, it's actually can be a real problem because you're collecting income for weddings next summer, the summer after that.
Yeah, in advance.
So obviously, if you've priced a wedding for 12 months' time and you were going to think you might hit the 75,000 in the next 12 months, the sooner you register, the better, really. Otherwise, you are going to have to give 1/11th of what you've earned for next season's weddings to the tax man, and you haven't charged extra for it.
Yeah, I've done that before.
It's a tricky one.
I definitely did that, and I definitely don't recommend it. I think the problem was when I was like working with bands and other people, I was sort of invoicing on behalf of other people, so my income like went up really high, even though it wasn't even me keeping all of the money. Or something.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get caught by that as well. So
Yeah.
if you're invoicing, say for a duo, but it's all under
Yeah.
your ABN,
Yeah.
you might be invoicing $1,500 for a wedding, but only keeping $750 of it.
Yes.
But that $1,500 is going towards your actual turnover, what you've invoiced under your ABN.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of confusion.
Yes.
People will be thinking, I'm only keeping the $750.
Yeah, but it still counts.
Yeah,
the
but if
whole
it's all
amount.
invoiced on your ABN, that's part of your turnover.
Yes, exactly. So keep an eye on your numbers, and if you think you're going to hit it, then just get in and register early, and then you can start collecting it.
Correct.
Yeah. What if you registered for it early and you didn't quite hit it and you collected the money? Then what would happen?
So if you can register at any time, so
Yeah.
you can register the minute you start in business.
Yeah.
If it's actually not a bad idea to do,
Yeah.
if basically you're going to incur a lot of expenditure, startup costs at the start, and the things that you're spending the money on have GST on them. Say, for example, musical instruments, PA system, all of those things have GST on them.
Yeah.
If you're going into a recording studio and the studio is registered for GST, all of those expenditure you can actually get refunded 1/11th of all of those costs.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so those refunds of GST will go, that's what we do every 3 months when we do a GST return, is what have you collected on behalf of the government and what have you paid out, and then the net difference is what you
They
send
kind of
off.
will cancel each other out a bit.
Yeah, well, if you're not making a profit, then what you're collecting less what you're spending, if those expenses have GST on them, you won't really be sending a lot off.
It sounds like a game of Monopoly, and you're teaching me the rules. And you just got to know what the rules are of the game.
Yeah, I feel like some people just look at accountants as it's such an unnecessary cost, or I can do it myself. And I always say, look, I can't play an instrument, I can't sing. I'm not even going to attempt to do something I can't do.
Yeah.
So I always advise everyone, it's the best money you'll ever spend is looking after your money with an expert looking after it, than trying to do something yourself. You really don't know what you're doing.
Absolutely. I would completely stuff it up.
It would just be like me as an accountant doing a legal document. We're not allowed to, and I wouldn't attempt it because I'm not a lawyer. I haven't been to university and learnt what it all means.
Yeah, we should try and swap days one day, Kylie. You do my gig and I'll try and do your accounting. I'll see,
You don't want to hear
see
me
how much
sing.
I ruin your office and destroy everything. I'm like, all your books will be out. No, I can only count to 4 because I'm a musician. That's all we need.
1, 2, 3,
I
4.
do have another question. So with if going over the 75,000, is that, just to clarify, because people have asked this before, is that just for your musician work, or does that include your day job collectively, or are they separate?
If your day job is a salary and wage job, obviously with all my over 30 odd years dealing with musicians, it could be a hospitality job, barista job, you might have a music teaching job. If that's on salary and wages, that's got nothing to do with your ABN turnover.
Yeah.
So whatever that salary and wage job is, has nothing to do with GST. It's only everything you invoice through your ABN. But you only ever have one personal ABN. So people may have 2 jobs and both are invoiced on your ABN. So collectively everything invoiced on your ABN goes towards your turnover.
Yeah, sure. So it can be separate by the sounds of things then,
If you're on salary and wages,
if you're in
as
salary
an
and wages.
example too, I've just had a music teacher in this year. It can be very tricky getting to that 75,000 if you're doing gigs on weekends and music teaching to get by during the week.
Yeah.
It can be really unfortunate if all of a sudden you've got to put your $40 lesson up 10% to $44. It can be the difference between you keeping the students and not, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's really, you've got to be very mindful that of this GST issue, because it obviously affects your pricing.
Yeah.
The minute you hit it, everything goes up 10%.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Oh, thank you for explaining that, because, imagine an up and coming young musician, or even someone who's just always worked for salary and wages, all of a sudden having to think about GST. It's just this like big question mark of like, what is this and what do I do? So yeah, I really appreciate you explaining that. And on a little side note, I know you're John Butler's accountant.
Yes.
How did that happen?
Oh, look, that was, he's one of my original clients. We just celebrated, it's now 26 years. We had a big party at 25 years.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. So I was very lucky. I started this business in 1998, and it was about when he was starting out. I had dealt with a few bands in Perth and a few musicians, and one of the original bands said to me, "Oh, I'm going to recommend this new up-and-coming muso to you. I think he's going to be huge." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay then, rightio." And I was working senior accountant in Subi, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, and starting my little business on Saturdays at my house. So I never met John for 5 years, mind you.
Wow.
Because in the old days, I met his manager, Phil, and he showed up all those years ago with the shoebox of receipts in the old days. And it was quite funny that I never did meet him because, that's quite common back then, that you have your manager and he looks after everything.
Yeah.
Totally different world these days with the young musos. They're very hands-on, and not that John's never not kept an eye on what's going on.
Yeah.
But nowadays, it's a totally different world. I mean, you're thinking back then, the internet had only just come in. No streaming, none of this, none of that.
Yeah,
so it's a totally different world.
Yeah.
But yes, I've been very lucky that himself and his partner, Danielle, aka Marmakin, have stuck with me this whole time. And yes, we've enjoyed a very good relationship together.
Oh, that's amazing. So it's been like 25 years.
Pretty much. I think Danielle and I did a big workshop at Big Sound last September, and I think she'd worked out it was 23 and a half years. Yeah. So
to be exact.
Yeah. So I ran a workshop. It was kind of a bit of a dream to get on the national circuit.
Oh, amazing.
And we spoke about building a sustainable music career.
Yeah.
And how getting the team around you is really important.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a pretty good message to send to all musicians. As part of what you're doing with Gig School is like you can go from just doing this as a hobby to making it
a career. Absolutely, you definitely can. Yeah, well, that's a huge testimony in itself if you've been their accountant for 2 decades. I mean, you must be doing something right.
Hopefully.
And it must have been exciting for you as well to have, just an artist like that just starting and he might be big and he's got potential, and then like, oh, holy crap, like he blew up.
Yes, it was actually really interesting because I had my first child in 2000 and here I was, and then a second one a couple of years later, and here I was just working from home with, juggling your babies as you do.
Yeah.
And dealing with this guy whose career was going up and up and up. And I always tell this funny story. It's just I always found once I became a mother, you worked harder and more efficient because you didn't want to lose the time with your babies that you never get back.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going, John started touring America, and I'm going, there's got to be an Australian band that's made it in America, they must have a USA account. How am I going to find a USA accountant? And there I am with the little one watching the Wiggles. So I actually faxed, which the younger audience now wouldn't even know what a fax machine was. But I typed up a fax on my letterhead and sent it through to the Wiggles website and said, "Hi, who's your American accountant? I've got a..." And at that stage, John had just won an ARIA. So I said, "I've got an ARIA award-winning artist who's starting to tour America. Could you please introduce me to your American accountant?" That's just like thinking outside the square, right? So next thing you know, I get this, "Hi, I'm Marsha. I'm the Wiggles accountant." So that's how things started.
Oh, that's incredible. And who would have thought that that's just you as a mum with your little one watching the Wiggles and that little brainwave of the Wiggles. I need to get their accountant for John.
And I did. We still used her up until the last few years or something. Like she lasted quite some time.
Oh, that is amazing. Yeah. I love that story. That is fantastic.
You always got to think outside the square,
exactly.
don't you?
Outside the square of the TV, you've got to think outside that. And so another question that a lot of musicians ask about in the last couple of years is superannuation.
I knew it was coming.
So, yeah, that has been quite a thing because it really, even if it's always been the law, no one's ever paid any attention to it in the Perth music industry ever. I don't think anyone even knew about it.
No, so unfortunately, I've been even speaking on national forums. It was really not picked up at all until virtually 2.5 years ago that the limit of paying super went from $450 a calendar month to zero.
Yeah.
So that's when it came into focus, was if you're paying anyone for, it's not just musicians, it could be theatre, a performing artist of any form, that you should be paying their superannuation if they're invoicing as a sole trader.
Yeah.
And obviously that then caught out a lot of disorganised bands which is always the way. People think they start a band, so one person's always the organiser that gets the gigs, does the bookings, handles the money,
registers for the GST,
and it's basically caused definitely a ripple effect throughout Australia. And it was totally ignored. And one big thing would be obviously a duo, like I was talking before with the GST turnover issue. There's also the super issue.
Yeah.
So if that person invoicing for the $1,500 for a duo was invoicing for a performance, and as far as the person paying them knows, it's they're dealing with a sole trader, it's a sole trader's ABN, then the person paying them is meant to put in at the currently 11.5% into their chosen super fund.
Yeah.
And I feel a little bit like over the last 2.5 years, I keep, I do all these talks nationally, online, going out to places. It's like, don't shoot the messenger. I didn't make the law. I'm just trying to explain to you how it works.
So you don't get in trouble.
Yes.
Imagine if someone asks for back pay for like 3 decades worth and takes you to court and you have to pay it.
We actually had a very big ban that we just got on our books since super came in.
Yeah.
And they actually had a member that basically all anyone's got to do is just a helpline to the tax office super helpline.
Yeah.
So we had to go way back over 6 years.
Oh, wow.
And obviously while you do it for one, you do it for everyone that was on the books for that 6 years. And, it turned out like $10,000. It's not so much the $10,000 of super, but $6,000 worth of interest and penalties. And it's all non-deductible, $16,000.
Oh, wow.
So it is real. It is law. And it's... and people think, they're just a session musician or a support act. I've only used them on a once-off. Doesn't make any difference. If using a sole trader, you should pay their super.
Yeah.
But there's the other side of it as well that, there's lovely musicians in Perth who are saying, well, this venue, this booking agent's not using me anymore because I am a sole trader. They'll only deal with partnerships, trusts or companies.
Yeah, because you don't have to pay super to those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yes, it's a real issue. And then I still cannot believe I'm getting young people coming in don't even know about it, never heard about it.
Yeah.
You mention it, they say, no one's ever paid my super.
Yeah.
Just had a big festival that someone organised all the acts for. My client organised all the acts, was saying, you do realise you've got to pay super for these sole traders? No, we don't. We've been to our accountant. And I even went back with an email saying, look, my advice would be that I know about this issue.
Yeah.
And it's like, we're doing what our accountant says. Well, that's fine. But, anyway.
If those if those people come back, it can come back and bite you
Yes.
later.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess so some of the ways around it is to register as a company, I suppose. PTY.
Register anything really, because even a
Yeah.
partnership, whoever pays a partnership doesn't have to pay super. Just got to be very careful who you go into partnership with,
Yeah.
because partners have no real legal protection.
Yeah. I guess, would you say that's only wise if you're actually like a married couple gigging together?
Partners. Look,
Or-
it's probably okay with the group of 4 young kids that have come up straight out of Whopper,
Yeah.
starting their own band at that stage of their life.
Yeah.
But, I can do some tax time talks to APRA songwriters, and I've got clients from those sort of workshops before in their 50s, well-established careers, the music's their band on the side. They've married children, very established lives. They would not want to be in partnership with just anyone.
No,
So-
it's too much to go wrong.
Yeah, so it only takes one person in the partnership to do something wrong, and someone would want to sue the partnership for something, and all of
Yeah.
a sudden they'll pick whoever's got...
The assets.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Even if it wasn't the one who did something wrong.
Yes.
Yeah, it
So
can-
partnership's not a great legal structure at all.
Yeah.
Fine when you I would always suggest you get advice about something like
yeah,
that anyway.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's the partnerships, and the other one is invoicing from a trust.
Yeah, family trusts are a good little structure if you're not really at the level of needing and wanting a company, because a company's basically we charge 2K plus GST to set up and get up and running.
Yeah.
And you might as well say that's a minimum what it's going to cost you every year after that to keep a company.
Yeah.
So a trust is quite good in that it's about a one-off fee of about $500 odd.
Yeah.
It lasts 80 years, a trust deed.
Wow.
It gets its own ABN,
Yeah.
so it is separate from you. So it's not a bad little structure if you don't want that extra cost of a company. The only problem with a trust or a partnership is it goes in, all the money and the profit, it's got to come out to someone. So you're not avoiding or got any ability to minimise any tax like a company's 25 cents on the dollar. It does go in and it goes out to someone at the end of the year. So it doesn't stay there and build up,
Yeah.
which is kind of like a partnership's the opposite of a band starting out. A band starting out might want a gig and save all their money towards recording an album or an EP or whatever. So they're not the best structures because you kind of don't... the amount of partnerships that go, oh, we run a band account but we never got any money, but you're still meant to pay tax on that money even if you're building it up for something else.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a trust can be good. Again, you'd want to run that by
Yeah,
an accountant.
Get some advice.
A lawyer's got to form a trust deed. It's a legal document. But, yeah, there are advantages in that, and it can actually employ you, whereas a partnership and sole trader, you can't employ yourself.
Yeah. And there's, I guess, some other ways around it. Like if you're in a duo, you can just invoice separately, which is like invoice your customer. If one of you invoices and the other one does.
It could be, but as you know, these kinds of things can be a bit painful. If I was paying, if I was paying, depends on how many people you're paying.
Yeah.
If you're a pub booking a band 7 nights a week or something, there's no way you'd be wanting to pay double the people. You'd say, I'm dealing with you, the sole trader, and you look after the rest of that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I guess I've noticed if you explain to customers, look, if it goes through me, I have to pay super, so it's going to be more expensive, and also there's also the workers' compensation thing to consider as well. And then you let them know, but if we invoice separately, because it's direct, it's cheaper. I find they're like, oh, okay, well,
Yeah,
we
just
just
give
want
two.
what's cheaper.
Yeah, exactly.
We're
exactly.
happy to pay twice if it's cheaper.
Yes, yeah.
So I
But
have...
probably more so for your
For a
weddings and
duo,
things like
yeah.
that, or venues.
Yes.
Probably okay, just depends.
It depends on the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I did have someone that was doing weddings that basically the deposit went to the organiser and then the money from the wedding goes to the musicians.
Yeah.
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 So that's another way. But more admin, more...
Yes, it is. I guess, you just have to choose for ask your customers what would they prefer. Would they prefer less admin and more cost, or like would they like it cheaper but there's more admin
Yeah.
on their end, I suppose. So yeah, but it does get trickier, as you say, like if there's several people. But I have to say, I have had some weddings where they've booked like a whole plethora of musicians, and they have been okay to pay them all separately
That's great.
to get it cheaper.
Yeah.
But I guess it's a bit different anyway with a wedding, because they're also paying a florist and like they're just like, oh, it's just more
Yeah.
people that
Yeah.
that we're paying for this sort of thing. And what would you say if there's like a musician just starting out and they don't have an accountant and they don't know what they're doing? Like, what should they do, or how do they contact you, or when should they? Like, if they're just doing little market gigs, should they contact you yet, or is it a certain point?
Well, we always, I guess I've always gone with the notion that a lot of people think it's just a hobby.
Yeah.
And I don't see music as just a hobby. I don't know many musicians that probably wouldn't spend probably $5,000 a year with instruments running around in your car, your telephone, your internet, your Spotify, all of these things.
That's just one guitar, Kylie.
Yeah, I know about guitars and basses. But yeah, you run around 5,000 Ks in your car, there's a $4,250 claim at the moment. So as long as you're genuinely showing that you're in business, i.e. and I mean, I know bands that might only perform 5-6 times a year, but they actually have rehearsals weekly because, and they're going in the studio and doing recording and all that. And just because you don't make, you spend more than you make and you make a loss, doesn't mean that you're not serious about your music business.
Yeah. We all do that. And we're serious.
Occasionally, people will do okay out of music. No, I shouldn't say occasionally. I never like to dampen anyone's hope, even after going into my 34th tax season. I don't like to dampen anyone's spirits. But there are success stories, and I always say you never know that one song that might be around the corner.
Yeah, exactly.
Distro deal. I have one band that got picked up on a Diet Coke ad 20 years ago, still getting paid.
Wow.
So you never know.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Yeah.
and then these days with the internet and, like a Troy Sivan working from Perth in his bedroom at some stage. Look at him now.
Yeah, anything's possible.
Anything's possible.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of clients songwriters that have won international song comps and things like that, which that's so exciting.
Yeah.
So, but I'm always like, even the young, you've sent a few young girls my way with their mums or whatever when they're just starting out. Even if you get that little initial meeting when they're really young, just to set them on track, and then even once they start, leave high school and start gigging a lot more regularly or something, then that's really the time to come and see us. But, it's basically, I think most people don't even think twice about paying $300 to H&R Block to do their tax return every year, and for really an extra $100 we can give them actual proper full-on advice about the music industry.
I have to. Another question that gets asked a lot is about clothes. I'm sure people ask you this a lot. For a performer or an entertainer, like, what is tax deductible with their stage clothing, and what is required for that to to be a thing?
Well, it is a bit sexist because I kind of always say women, it's quite easy. Say, for example, the sequined dress you're wearing. Are you going to wear that down the street? Like it's costume, isn't it? You know,
I mean,
for a
sure.
performance.
Well, this is my everyday clothes, Kylie.
Well, maybe for you,
This
yes,
is my
but yeah,
dressing
your
gown.
average, your average. Well, you know, most guys, unfortunately, for it's like the black jeans and the black t-shirts. Like
Yeah.
it's not going to sell. But obviously, if they then go and spend money on a pair of cowboy boots and a cowboy hat and tassels on their shirt, and they're a country and western singer,
Yeah.
it's a costume, isn't it?
Yeah.
Definitely the leather jacket. I mean, every muso would like to claim a leather jacket, but, you know. But with girls, I think there's a little bit more leeway that obviously there's certain items that are very theatrical and that. With the makeup, I say if you're spending money on good quality stage makeup is what we call it.
Yes.
I say about your hair. If you're getting your hair done on the day of a performance and get a proper receipt from your hairdresser, you're obviously getting your hair all done for the performance that night.
This is so nice. I
Yeah.
feel so happy just hearing you talk about this.
It's it's just about using a makeup and hair artist for a special performance, a special event, things like that. So it's just being more and more organised. But you know, you've got to be careful with claiming 100% of every cent you spend on fashion, makeup, hair. Or you might apportion it and say...
I do have to be careful with that, you're right. I personally do have to be careful. So if there was a dude that bought a suit for his gigs, is that...
No,
able to be claimed?
unfortunately, suits are like, so say myself as an accountant or a lawyer, none of our professional people can claim a suit. A suit you can wear anywhere.
Oh, wow.
I do have someone that's kind of like, well, I'm going to get my logo embroidered on the pocket.
And does that count then?
Well, yes, it's a uniform, isn't it?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, but you'd want to have it on the pants as well.
Yeah,
It can't just be, if you look at the ordinary thing about when something is deductible, it's about, there's certain rules.
Yeah.
I always think there was the lady that was the nanny for the Governor General tried to claim, that's a court case, that she tried to claim like thousands of dollars of clothing, saying, well, I had to look this great, and they even knocked that back.
Wow.
So, but to me, musicians on stage, there's a certain level of things that you'd be wearing during a performance that is definitely stage wear costumes.
Yeah. Oh, that's so fantastic, isn't it?
Yes.
So I've got a question for the younger ones. So they're not quite 18 yet, but they're starting to do gigs. So I guess there's the whole statement by supplier form thing.
Yes.
Which is that form. I think is it on the ATO website?
Yeah, just it's nicknamed as a hobby form.
Yes.
Statement of supplier. Now, in terms of do these people that are hobbyists, so they're saying, do you have to pay them super? And unfortunately, I have not in 2.5 years been able to get a clear answer on that. I've gone as high as I can over east.
Wow, that's interesting.
In an accounting firm, huge accounting firm with the music industry, huge organisations in the arts, and there's no black and white answer on that. To the best of our ability, we can't say definitely no super. So I would be suggesting to do it. Anyone under 18 doesn't. You don't have to pay super unless they work for you 30 hours a week. So most minors, you don't have to pay super for.
Yeah, that's
But yes, that hobby form is a bit of a sticking point, and there is no... Unfortunately, with the tax office, the only way to get a definite answer is to actually go for a private ruling. And so I don't really think that...
and what would that be?
Well, you've got to... It's a private ruling. You're basically saying, hey, we... do I have to pay super on people that present me with a statement of supplier? And that's the only way you'd get a yes/no answer. I guess if it went against you, it's pretty... Yeah, who wants to be the guinea pig is my understanding.
Yeah, I'll do it. I'm like, Gig School wants to know.
No problem.
Yeah, okay. Are they supposed to send... do you have to send an invoice as well? Or is the statement by supplier form enough as a whole thing by itself? Do you know?
I don't really know the ins and out mechanics of that.
I always wondered if, is like just the form, or do they send the form and make up an invoice? They're wasting their time making an invoice as well.
Well, you want to claim it, so you want some evidence that you've paid them. You need that form to say that you're not withholding the 47% tax because they didn't give you an ABN. You need that form. So I don't know in the real world. Because, I mean, there's a lot of times where people might be going through an agency and I say, have you got a contract with the agency? No, it's just verbal thing, and I turn up where they tell me to go. It's off the app, So I don't know the practicalities in the real world if people are actually giving invoices if they give a statement supplier.
Yeah, sure.
They can't give an invoice with an ABN on because they don't have an ABN.
And so if there's a minor wanting to get a tax file number, how do they go about doing that? Is that just, it's been so long.
I know.
Is that just...
I think you get the application in paper and you've got to send it in. I don't think you can do it electronically. It used to be they were available at post offices.
Yeah.
Where we don't really, everyone really turns up with a tax file number these days.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, let's face it, you could Google.
Yeah.
But, because you've got to have your ID and all those things.
Yeah.
Now there's MyGov apps. It might be easier.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
So youngins, get a tax file number.
Yes, well, they're going to need one at some... I mean, most kids would have one nowadays. You can start work at 14, isn't it?
Yeah, if they go to...
They do Woolies or whatever it is.
Fast food.
Yeah, somewhere.
Yeah. And do you have any advice for musicians on how they might be able to, I don't know, travel better if they've got any travel involved or...
Yes, travels obviously can be a big expense for musicians. As an example, with the wedding industry, I'm sure it seems like everyone's getting married down in Margaret River.
Yeah, they are.
Dunsborough in the last since we come out of COVID, the other side. I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, I've got a wedding there tomorrow and I've forgotten to book my accommodation, so I'll have to do that after this and hope there's something left. Yeah. So, yes, I know what you mean.
Yeah. So, basically, from the moment you leave home tomorrow to drive down there, everything you spend on eating, if you have to pay for accommodation, all of that is classified as business travel. The minute you leave, so you can have breakfast at home, but the minute you get in your car and drive, every time you stop, if you're driving your car, you're going to pay for petrol and things like that. So depending on if you've kept a logbook on your car, or we just go the maximum 5,000 Ks for the year, depends on how much you'll claim of that fuel that you're spending. But it's all business travel.
Great.
Obviously, you'd only go down Saturday. If you're going to come back Sunday, the only reason you've gone down is to work.
Yes.
The big one I get now is, lots of the young ones wanting to go to Europe, and, seems coming out of COVID, seems like the ideal destination these days for them. Can I claim any of my Europe trip? I'm going to go and check out some gigs and venues and this sort of thing.
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah. So what I've always said is if you're going to go away overseas, you line up appointments with, you might have record labels or managers, or it's the more evidence you keep, the better as to what's a work day and what's a non-work day.
Yeah.
So I always use an example of a young couple that loved, country and western, that dream to go to Nashville. So they initially were going to America for a 2 months. When I first met them, they'd been to America for 2 months and said, how much can we claim of last year's trip? And I said, well, can you work out from when you went how many days you spent on music-related activities? So there might have been 10 days out of 60 the first time, because they then saw me, knew to keep the travel diary and the receipts and all of these things. The next day it was 37 out of 60. And then the third year they went, it was like we're just going straight to Nashville and just kept every records,
So it's all a tax-deductible trip?
Absolutely.
Wow.
And, it's not like they're throwing in, if you're going to go and spend a whole month or 2 months at Nashville, there's a whole reason for this to try and break in,
Yeah.
But even these, just by thinking about it before you go and trying to keep that travel diary record is what the tax office want to see. How is this work-related?
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And I do recall you've always say to me, do you have a logbook? And I always forget. So I need to go to Officeworks and get a logbook and keep track. It's like 3 months, isn't it, of your driving
12 weeks continuous.
to your gigs?
Yes, and as long as your usage doesn't vary too much, it lasts you 5 years.
Yeah.
So you have some pain for 1 3 month period.
Worth it.
A lot of people say they use the apps. I don't like the apps because they go straight to the ATO, most of them. I like the actual old-fashioned logbook because it sits there in the car when you get in every time. It's sitting in the middle of the console and just write your odometer when you leave home and write it when you get to your destination.
And we'll wrap up shortly, but I do have a question, which is, let's say there's a musician that's getting paid. What is the best way, in your opinion, for them to manage their money? Because I've spoken to a lot of musicians. We all suck. Like, we all suck at, I spend too much money. And, I've spoken to so many of them. So I'm just wondering, the money comes in, they've got to pay GST, they've got to pay tax. Like, how would you, as an expert with money, how would you recommend people should divide this? Like, should it all go into, like, should you have a GST account and have a tax account and have a spending account and your bills and your saving? Like, how should a musician in a perfect world manage their money?
Well, if we're going smaller, just when you're starting out, like a sole trader, the first things first is have a separate account for your business.
Yeah.
So even if you've got your gig money coming in and you're not even hardly got any expenses, maybe just your phone, fuel in the car, whatever, and then you need the rest of the money to live off, transfer that to a personal account. If you're going up bigger and you start registering for GST, absolutely fantastic to have a separate savings account because you're collecting that money over 3 months and then sending it off. If you start paying people wages and super, put the money in a separate account. So you've basically set it aside for every 3 months you've got to pay it, then spending everything you've got coming in. Definitely need to separate the business from your personal. But that's why I love once you do get to a company set up or even a trust when you can go on proper wages and regulate how much, so that's your salary just like anyone else.
Yes.
And I think mentally it's good for a musician
to
have their own company and go, oh, I'm on a salary. I'm making a living out of music. Not just treating it like, oh, a little bit of money here, a little bit of money there and grab it the minute it comes in and spend it.
It is good. That's what you have set up for me. And it has been really useful, and it mostly goes to my kids' private school fees. I've actually
It's a shame you can't get deductions for private school fees.
Oh, how can I make that happen, Kylie? What do I have to do?
Nothing we can do about that. How many got left to go?
2 left.
Two.
2 out of 4.
2 out of 4.
Halfway. But it actually has really helped me that, I've lined up my kids' fees to come out like the day after my monthly wage comes. The fees come out and it feels organised.
Yes.
I'm not like, oh my God, am I going to be able to pay for the school fees? Like, I don't feel that terror of being so disorganised. But also, just would you advise, let's say they've done that, they've put away the GST, they've put away the tax, and they've got some money left over. Is there a magical number that you think, or percentage you think people should be saving?
No, it's everyone's situation's different. The younger generation still living at home because they can't afford a house to get out, renting, God, my goodness, what they must be paying rent. One good thing about rent nowadays, if you've got a separate music room set up, you can claim that percentage of your rent. If you are renting, you wouldn't tend to claim a music room overly, wouldn't be the first thing you'd want to do if it's your own place, because you're putting capital gains tax on your house.
Oh, but if you're renting, you can have an allocated music room.
Yes.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, so quite common, 15-20% of your rent you can claim.
Oh my God, I didn't know that. I've got heaps of guitars in one of my rooms. Can I back pay this?
Yes. So, but in terms of saving, we can't even, so I am a financial planner as well, but you're not allowed to say it's recommending a financial product. So I can't even say bank this bank or that bank
Yeah.
or do this or do that.
Are you allowed to offer that service though, as a financial planner, to people privately?
Financial planning is another
That's
world unto it.
Another.
World unto itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I much prefer my 34 years of experience as an accountant, being
Yeah.
able to just answer questions directly.
Yeah.
But once you start getting into the financial planning world, it's got to all be written, cost a lot of money to just get a plan, things
Yeah.
like that. So they've really clamped down since the Royal Commission in 17 about what you can and can't talk about as a financial planner.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why I became one. So I'm covered because I'm both.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you got to know what you can and can't
what
say.
you can and can't say. Oh, and that's why we're musicians, because we don't follow any rules. We're just
And
like,
that's why I say, disclaimer, this is general advice.
exactly, yeah. So please, obviously, use your common sense. You always have to get professional advice. This is just, a bit of information about the industry, about, tax and super and all that. Yeah, do you have any, final words of advice that you might like to share?
I guess I'd just like to encourage anyone that wants to make a career out of music to go for it. I mean, I just love your posts and where you've come from since I first met you.
Oh, thank you.
I remember you coming up to me the first, I think it was when I got back on the WAM board.
Yeah.
I'd been on a year and you came up and introduced yourself.
Yes.
Oh, obviously I looked after your sister originally.
Yes.
Um,
And also, I saw you at a Wham Song of the Year, and you were like, "I'm buying everyone drinks," and you bought everyone, and I was like, "I like this lady." And ever since that day you bought me that drink, I was like, "I like this accountant."
Well, that's a classic. I bought her a drink, I bribed her.
Look, if you knew that was how simple it was to get musicians as clients. For life.
Well, I've loved working with you and I love what you've done for the music industry.
Oh, thank you. Likewise.
In terms of I think musos just love to be taken seriously.
Yes.
Like, I can't imagine being a young kid and your parents wanting you to be a doctor or something and
Yeah.
you turn around and say, I'm going to be a muso, you know.
Yeah,
But
the
I guess
horror.
both of us are out there trying to say you can make a career out of this.
Yes, because you can.
Yeah.
And well, with all the clients you've got and for how many years, obviously, it's possible.
Yeah, we're getting up to 1,600 now.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, but I just love when they come in and say, yes, so glad we found you. Yeah,
Yeah.
you've changed my world, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we want to keep doing that and keep helping
Yeah.
the industry.
And you're so supportive. Like when you're not at work, you're always at a gig. Always. You should see Kylie's at another concert or at a convention for musicians or supporting musicians in some way. So it's obvious that you do really genuinely care about musicians. Otherwise, you wouldn't go to all of our gigs.
No, I kind of talk about that now and say, it's actually become my hobby is
Yeah.
going to live music gigs.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like what the perfect world of
Yeah.
your profession turning
Yeah.
into your thing you like to do in your spare time as well.
Are those gig tickets, are they tax deductible for you?
Well, I totally believe so because
Yeah, it's networking, right?
well, no, I'm just it's all research and learning what
I love that.
well, I got to go to their launches and I don't
Yeah.
like 95% of the time I don't like this will leave your name on the door. It's like I want to give musicians money. But it's cost me a fortune in vinyls, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
Because I can't stream for the life of me. It
Yeah.
just, a million streams for 4K or something. It's like
Yeah.
a $45, $50 record that they get to keep all the money less the production.
Exactly. It's a
I'm
much
like,
better way to support.
But I'm getting a very big record collection now.
Yeah, I bet. Oh, well, thank you so much for everything you do for our industry, for all the support you give to all the musicians. And yeah, we just really appreciate you. And yeah, thank you for all your support and all your advice. And where can we find you?
Sorrentostrategic.com.au.
Yep.
I moved out of home 4 years ago, and we've got an office at the back of the Korean shops there.
Yep. Very nice office.
Yeah, we love our office. We took over next door because
Yes.
we needed to.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we do virtual. We actually have clients Australia-wide, some even
Yeah.
all over the world really. So
Yeah.
these days it's so easy to do it virtual
Yeah.
as well as in person.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much, Kylie. Oh, I just thought of one more question. Can I ask one more thing?
Sure.
Okay, I might have to edit this in. Okay, if you're at a cruise ship gig in America, in the middle of the ocean, do you have to pay tax on the money you earn?
Now that's a real tricky one.
Oh, okay.
So
Sorry, it just came to me.
No. It depends
Yeah.
because these ships are all registered to different countries and things like that. But they do. I have had people saying we're on international waters.
Yeah.
As an Australian tax resident, which means that you report to the ATO.
Yeah.
You've got to declare your worldwide income.
Yeah.
But sometimes, actually, like I have circus people as well, right?
Yeah, of course.
So I even had one girl that had a continuous 2-year contract on cruise ships.
Yeah.
But I said, do you own real estate in Perth? Do your family live in Perth? Is your car in Perth? You know, so are you still a resident for tax purposes? That's a huge technical area.
So
But
the answer would be yes.
I'd be saying go and see your tax accountant because it's not just black and white.
It's not just black and white.
No.
Oh, I'm in the water. I don't have to pay tax to anyone. It's not as simple
No,
as that.
so even in this particular girl's case, when I said genuinely, are you tied to Perth? Is this your home? Because, you know, someone might pack up, sell everything, not have anything
Yeah,
anywhere.
that's true.
And they're not a resident of anywhere.
Yeah, okay.
So there's different things.
Yeah.
But also even a lot of those ships are owned by American companies.
Yeah.
And a lot of the ships, the income has American tax deducted.
Oh.
And they bank them in US dollars in a US account.
Okay,
It gets
so-
very complicated.
Yeah, okay. All right. We'll leave that.
Okay.
Thank you so much again for coming on today. Appreciate you. Thank you, Kylie.
Thanks, Ez. Thanks so much.